right, folks, it is that time, so we're gonna officially kick things off. Hello, hi everyone. My name is Kristen Tanner. I'm the programs manager at Innovate Marquette SmartZone, and welcome to tonight's Tech Talk. Thank you. I know you are here to hear David and not me, so I'm just gonna crank through a few housekeeping items, so bear with me for a minute. First, wanted to tell you a little bit more about Innovate Marquette, in case this is your first event. We are a business incubator and accelerator based here in Marquette, so we are a resource for this community. We are actually in our backyard right now. So if you just head out this back door, we're in the Flagstar Bank building on 101 West Washington Street. Come on over, check out our new space, give us a call, shoot us an email. Just want to let everyone know we are here for you. We're here for entrepreneurs, innovators, people with new product ideas and inventions. You don't have to go through it alone. We are here to assist you. So if that's one of the takeaways you take from this evening, just know that Innovate Marquette is a resource and we truly enjoy what we do. We love helping folks like you that are in this room. Obviously, you're here to hear David Ollila speak, but I want to remind you that this is a conversation. He's going to be up on stage, obviously sharing wonderful insights and knowledge, but this is, we've carved out programming for a Q&A, so start thinking of some questions you might want to be asking him about innovation in outdoor recreation. So don't be shy, speak up, we'll have time for Q&A at the end. Also want to give a big shout out to Amanda and Kelly and the entire Ore Dock team for all their help tonight in hosting us. Let's give a round of applause. Thanks, ladies. And of course, these events wouldn't be possible without the support of our sponsors and our partners. So I wanted to thank the Michigan Economic Development Corporation and the City of Marquette. Through their support, we are able to put on events like this tonight. So thank you to our sponsors. So now the main reason you're here, guys. I'm excited. David Ollila conceptualized his first product at age 7 while watching his mother cutting bananas. Although the thumb-sized cutting board never made it beyond a prototype, David hasn't stopped tinkering to enhance and develop products and processes. A systems thinker, serial entrepreneur, innovator, and business leader, he holds 16 patents spanning hardware to technology. With a lean and next steps approach, David excels in building new ventures, developing products, and cultivating relationships across numerous industries. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to David Ollila.
Hi, everybody. Hi. Thank you for coming. This is really weird. Normally, I don't speak in front of people I know, which is a lot easier because no one knows when I'm full of shit. So I'm going to do my best here, and if people don't call out when they hear lies, I'd appreciate that. And also, you should definitely Google everything I'm about to tell you because I can't promise you that it's 100% accurate. These are only things that I'm seeing in the relation to outdoor recreation and technology, and I think how it applies to Michigan. And as Kristen said, thank you, Kristen, for the introduction. What that introduction really means is I can't hold down a job. And so I'm an entrepreneur and a serial entrepreneur. Which means that I play a lot of time in the make-believe world, which is a fun place to be if you can be there. So thanks everyone for coming. I know that you have a lot of options of what you're going to do in Marquette, and a lot of you might have rather been outside recreating. And so tough luck, you're here tonight and you're seated, and so I appreciate that. Let's make it a conversation though. I know that some of you in the room won't be afraid to interrupt me, and you can do that, and you're welcome to call BS and have a little bit of a dialogue about it. I won't leave the stage, but oftentimes I get aggression and passion confused, so I'll do my very best to keep it on the passion quotient. And I've got some slides, and that's mostly for me just to keep me on track. So I will do my very best to do that. So thank you. I also want to say thanks to Joe Teal, the Innovate Marquette SmartZone. All of the folks have been extremely supportive as I've been pursuing outdoor recreation and what it means for the community, and that's an incredible staff. And if you do have ideas or you're looking for assistance as you bring your ideas to market, you should swing by the Kaufman Building, is that what we're calling it? The Kaufman Building, where all of the local EDOs are, and definitely recommend that you stop by if you have ideas, you want to explore businesses, or just find someone to chat with and see if you're completely crazy or not. So with that, let's go to a slide. So I want to ask these 3 questions today. I'm not used to that. What is outdoor recreation, technology, and innovation? I want to cover what the buzz is right now. Why is outdoor recreation such a big topic right now? I'm sure that there's some great algorithms that are dumping some outdoor recreation stuff into your feeds. And that's not a mistake. Part of it is the geography that we live in, but also there's a lot of changes going on in the economy right now around innovation, outdoor recreation, and so why is it such a big topic, and what are the conditions that spur innovation? How do you create a community that is constantly coming up with new ideas, experimenting with those, casting aside the failures, and then building upon that? So hopefully I do a good job there. And then what does it have to do with us? How does this apply to the UP, to Marquette, to Michigan, to the United States? All of these things that are happening around technology and outdoor recreation. All right, so I had to look these up myself just to make sure that I had a baseline of what I was talking about. And so technology, as it applies to this, I think is right in this: electronic or digital products and systems considered as a group, okay? Usually that's what we're thinking about when we think about technology. How many people in here use GPS when you're outdoor recreating? How many people have Strava? For those that don't know what Strava is, who can tell me what Strava is? This is the audience participation part.
Tracking running.
Tracking running, thanks Trey. Right, so it tracks your activities, okay? And that digital technology can actually become quite addictive as you're trying to see, did I have enough steps today? Did I beat my daughter on the enduro course? And I didn't, she beat me. But technology also applies to materials. What are the materials that we're making outdoor recreation products out of? It's about the process. How are these things made that we outdoor recreate on? And then the uses. And uses, I believe, actually can change technology as we take something from one area and we apply it to another area. I want to cover a couple of these. How many people in here started mountain biking before suspension? Okay. How many people, their first mountain bike was fully suspended? So that's interesting, right? So we've got some heritage in here where a lot of the people who've been outdoor recreating probably started with the earliest of technology. And what we've seen in biking is incremental increases or advancements of technology over a long period of time. So my first mountain bike, I want to say 88, and that was a GT Karakoram with a solid steel fork and a hardtail and 26-inch wheels and skinny tires, and that was state of the art. And it took that long from there to get to the bicycles that we now have in all of our local shops and the ones that you're enjoying on the trails. Skis, same thing. How many people started skiing by tying their boots? Yeah, imagine that, right? We had leather boots and we would tie them. In 1977, I broke my leg ski racing at Marquette Mountain, which was Cliffs Ridge at the time. And I had Besser bindings, and as a 7-year-old, or it was a 9-year-old, I thought that maybe I could adjust those bindings. I could not adjust those bindings. They didn't come off, and I broke my leg. That technology has advanced incredibly over periods of time, where we even went from like a standard in bindings to several different versions for different types of skiing from there. There used to be just one type of boot, now there's 15 types of boots. And so this is all examples of incremental innovation and technology shifts over a period of time. Snowmobiles, throwing in the power sports into this category as well. I rode a snowmobile yesterday, a Polaris Indy 650 while I was out at Ice Fest. That snowmobile has a very clean burning engine, weighs about a fifth of a Subaru, and has just as much horsepower. The advancements in these machines and clean burning and how these machines operate, and if you think back, that Polaris snowmobile started in the 50s and 60s, and I think the first Polaris dealership was in Brimley, Michigan, and I watched that on YouTube, and you can look that up too, verify that. All right, I want to cover innovation. I don't actually agree with this definition, by the way. I think the dictionary missed a few components of it. But what they're saying is it's to begin or introduce something new. I have a slightly different take on that from the standpoint that an invention is not necessarily an innovation. Who wants to tell me why? I see you nodding your head. Anyone want to take a crack at that?
It's an improvement. It's not a new necessarily. It's an improvement on a thing that's already there.
So innovation builds off of that improvement, yes. But, yeah, Joe. Didn't apply it, right? So my wife Meredith, by the way, is in the audience, so that's extra weird. So she knows that there are plenty of inventions laying around the house that have not changed everyone's life other than maybe hers. And that's just because there's a bunch of materials and stuff that never got adopted laying around our house, right? Innovation needs to catch on and change behavior. And typically in innovation, we think about that happening over a long period of time, and that's what we've mostly experienced in our lives. But I believe that that's going to change in the near future for us. So an invention is only an invention until it becomes an innovation, and that happens when it catches on and it starts changing behavior.
It feels like that track's almost like Moore's Law.
I love it.
Like it's getting faster and faster.
Yeah, and so that comment was, it feels like it tracks like Moore's Law and it gets faster and faster. Who knows what Moore's Law is? Right? I got half raised hands, so that means people know half of Moore's Law. So Moore's Law is essentially this notion that technology or the amount of space that's available for storage and processing power is going to double every 2 years. And that's been trending ever since Silicon Valley, and we'll talk about Silicon Valley a little bit, started in the 1970s as computing technology, and we know that because of how many iPhones we own and when it's time to buy a new one. That is all being driven by Moore's Law, that a number of exponential growth in technology that's available for us to use. How many people remember what the IDITA sport is? Mike, what's the IDITA sport?
Well, wasn't that the original long distance bike race in Alaska?
Yes. So the original long-distance bike race in Alaska was called the IDITA sport, and it got its name from the IDITA rod. And this is very old. And they had an invention in the IDITA sport. So how am I going to ride my bike across the IDITA rod, which is several hundred miles in Alaska, on skinny mountain bike wheels? You're not. So what did they do? They used double rims, right? They welded them together. They welded two rims together. So the fat bike, right, didn't catch on for a while, and the first invention was two rims stitched together being welded together so they could run two or an extra wide bike tire on that. So then someone goes, well, why are we building it like that? Why don't we just make a rim that's twice as wide, and then we can have fat tires, and it makes it so much easier to ride on the snow. When did we start riding in the snow?
2009.
A long time ago, Mike says, 2009. So in 2009, my friend Mike and I, we would go riding in Sugarloaf and we would snowshoe pack down the trail. That was the invention stage of that sport because it wasn't catching on. It didn't look that exciting, and if you came off the trail on those skinny wheels, you're going over the handlebars. So this is a good example, right? You have an invention of people out of this necessity to ride the idea sport. They widen their wheels by modifying existing technology. Then someone says, you know what we should do? We should build these things from scratch. And then that caused a whole new problem, grooming. If I want to ride my fat tire bike, I've got to groom. And the first groomer I tried was a lawn roller that I attached to the back of my snowmobile. And what happened was when you turn a corner on that, the roller would slide off to the side and it was all off camber. And so people started thinking about, all right, we need to make groomers. So how do you make a snow bike groomer that can actually do the job? And that technology is why you can go out and ride on the snow bike trails in Marquette. It takes a long period of time to get to that, even though, and I don't know what the data they did a sport was, but it's 80s, 90s, and it can't be past the 90s when the Adidas sport was happening. You can look that one up too. And then outdoor recreation. I think this is where it starts to get exciting. Here's a couple definitions of outdoor recreation. All recreational activities undertaken for pleasure that occur outdoors. Pretty broad, and it says it's broad right in there. And then the narrower is all of that, but also adding generally involving some level of intentional or physical exertion. Where do we think that definition came from? Not the dictionary, Henry.
Snowmobiling.
Not snowmobiling, okay? So who is defining this? The Bureau of Economic Analysis. Why would the BEA give us a definition of outdoor recreation? Anyone have a take on that? Right? This is a big government agency. They measure all of our economic output. Was that? Did Brad say something? You don't have a voice anymore.
The industry made them.
The industry made them. Okay? And I don't even think it was that hard for them to make it. Excuse me. Because we know the government doesn't do stuff they don't care about. And what does the government care about?
Money.
That's because when they started counting outdoor recreation, they came up with a number of its value in GDP. $862 billion. So you can't read this here, but it says that surpasses industries such as mining, utilities, farming, ranching, and chemical product manufacturing. If I would have told you that outdoor recreation is a bigger industry than mining before the BEA was up there, how many people would have believed me? Right? One or two. Okay? The government's like, wait a second. We have an industry we didn't even know about that's bigger than our biggest industries when you start looking at it in this lens. The government cares. They started measuring. When you start measuring, you can start growing things, and you can be purposeful about it. All right, so here's where I wanted to give a break, and we can cover this, these definitions if you'd like. So what is outdoor recreation, technology, and innovation? Do we have a good baseline here? Does anyone have any questions about outdoor recreation? Tracking? In the back, I can barely see, but please.
Yeah, do you know when the BEA started tracking outdoor recreation as something different aside than normal recreation?
2017, it was not too long ago, right, Brad?
19.
Okay? Just now, okay? Think about it. It's like you pull your jeans out of the dryer, like $20 in the pocket, right? I had no idea, right? Anyone want to go get some coffee? Okay. Two topics in this section, the buzz and the conditions for innovation. Why is everyone, when I say everyone in this room, but actually it's quite a national conversation right now. Why are so many people talking about outdoor recreation? Very rarely in someone's life do they have all of these conditions come together that creates not just incremental innovation, but exponential, Moore law type innovation sprints. And I believe that we're at a 100-year cycle right now, where these connections, the perfect conditions, have all come together for our geographic region, for the state of Michigan, for the outdoor recreation industry to completely accelerate what it means to outdoor recreate. And it'll change in the next 5 and 10 years more than it has since you tied your ski boots and went out to Cliffs Ridge. It's going to happen very quickly. So let's take a look at some of this. We already had, and I've referenced Brad here a couple times. So Brad Garman is here today. Brad runs the Michigan office for Michigan Industry Office. It's like 6 pages long. Office of Outdoor Industry.
All people.
Yeah, I screwed that up. He's gonna be mad at me for like 3 days.
Unforgivable.
Brad is the person for the state of Michigan who's driving outdoor recreation industry beyond just tourism and has been very helpful as we've been looking at what does this mean for the UP and the rest of the state. So, but outdoor recreation was already growing above the pandemic, ahead of the pandemic. There was a natural growth curve that was already happening. We just started measuring GDP. So now it's important to the government that outdoor recreation be tracked. Digital connectivity. Rural communities across the UP started to get broadband. It made it viable to be able to digitally connect to the rest of the world in rural places where that was not possible before. Remote work. How many people are remote working now in this room? When did that start? Like a minute ago. Right? It just started to happen. We're still adjusting to this notion of remote work and what it means. And there used to be this thing called balance in life, and that doesn't exist anymore because we're all blending life together now, right? Balance is a fallacy. You're never going to be able to balance your life in this new world. You're going to be blending all of these components. And if you take that viewpoint, it's a much more pleasurable life because this notion of balance puts a lot of pressure on people to have this wonderfully balanced life, and that just doesn't exist anymore with all of these outside influences coming at us from all directions. Quality of life. A lot of people, believe it or not, don't want to commute for an hour each way to work. Right? Imagine that, right? And how many people left 5 minutes before this event was going to start or before you wanted to get here, okay? That is a very rare thing across the United States, and it's one of the benefits that we have here in Marquette and here in the UP. Layoffs, and this is kind of recent, but I think it's almost 100,000 people in technology and design and outdoor recreation have been laid off. You know what that means? 100,000 or so people that are really talented and really creative have just been released into the wild. That is actually going to spur innovation. A good portion of those people will decide, this is when I'm going to become an entrepreneur. This is when I'm going to take that product idea to market. I lost my job, I've got some unemployment, hiring isn't happening so much right now. Can I get out of San Francisco and where can I go? And that's what they're doing. The electrification of everything. And that's what's going to drive the bulk of the technological shifts. Everyone right now is hell-bent on taking the ICE engine and electrifying it to create these new experiences, and that's the biggest thing that's going to change the way that we go into the outdoors, or out into the outdoors. Can we go into the outdoors? Out into the outdoors. Industry choice. The industry has already made this decision for you. If you want an analog bike, keep it, hold on to it, because there's going to be fewer and fewer analog bikes in the future. And there's going to be more and more electric bikes. And pretty soon, that non-electric bike is going to look like an antique until all of technology fails, and then that person with that bike is going to be a rock star. And government incentives and investment. The government wants this to happen, the industry wants it to happen, and the consumers are starting to adopt these technologies. All of those forces are coming into play that's shifting the way that we're going to recreate. Silicon Valley and charcoal. How many people know the kind of the basic origin story of Silicon Valley? We talk about it all the time. What's Silicon Valley famous for? Chips. That's how it started, right? One of the first chip manufacturing areas in the United States. What else is in Silicon Valley? Stanford University. A chip manufacturer and a professor from Stanford said, we're going to start producing two things, computer chips and technology, and Stanford is going to work really hard at making sure our students know that entrepreneurship is a path. Stanford started cranking out entrepreneurs. That attracted other entrepreneurs. Silicon Valley started putting chips together, and NASA moved in. Then another company moved in, and then Intel moved in. And all of a sudden, you had a hub. That started in 1970-something. That's a long time ago to think about how Silicon Valley became the quintessential place that you think about when it comes to technology. That was purposely made over a period of time by collecting really smart and innovative people with a we don't care if we fail kind of mentality, and what you got out of that was all of the technology that's in your pockets right now. It didn't exist before then. So how does that relate to charcoal? Anyone know where I'm going with this? No. Does anyone know where the charcoal briquette was invented?
Kingsford.
Right? So here's the quick story. Henry Ford had about 15 plants in the UP. Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, Kingsford, which was Ford's cousin and a realtor, was sent to find a bunch of acreage in the southwestern UP so that they could make a plant. Why did Ford want a plant in the UP? Wood. Wood, spokes, frames, doors, the woody. So Ford saw the value proposition that the UP had to offer, and instead of just extracting it, he put his factories here. And he liked the place, so he invited his friends up. So Ford and Edison and Kingsford are walking through a Ford plant in Iron Mountain, and they're wondering, what can we do with this waste material? They happened to also be a part of this group that they called the Vagabonds. They would travel around the UP camping in a 1922 custom Ford Lincoln. They had nothing to cook their meat with. How do we cook when we're camping outdoors? You know what we could use? We could use the waste from this factory. I know a chemist in Oregon. We can compress this stuff, and then we can light it on fire, and that's how we're going to cook. And there's a great article in the New York Times about that, and they probably have the facts more accurate than I do in that article. So highly recommend that. But the story of that and why it's important is when you create a place that has a value proposition in the value chain, and then when you bring people together to start getting creative, you start coming up with things like charcoal, and then factories get built. Now, we're still paying for that because of the chemicals that have been pumped into the ground, and we're getting smarter about sustainability, but the fact of the matter is when you gather collective people or creative people in an area, and you have a value proposition that's connecting to different economies, that is how you can create economies of your own. What does this have to do with us? What does it have to do with Michigan and with the UP? How does this relate to us, this moment of time right now? Here's my view of the UP economy. On this side, we extract stuff. That's a chunk of nickel. We all know those aren't blueberries, that's iron ore. And that's logging. That is one end of the bookmark of the UP's economy. On the other end of the economy, we have a $26 trail pass for your ORV, a $52 trail pass for your snowmobile. Brad, that pasty's there just for you. We have mountain biking as the destination. And so our economy right now is bookmarked by two things. Extraction on one end of the value proposition, and the very last use on the other end of the value proposition. And what we've given up is everything in the middle, except for maybe a couple universities and a couple hospitals and a couple small businesses based on the definition of a small business. Where are our innovators? Where are the people that are gathering up here to come up with clever ideas to grow our economy? Okay? When you talk to folks downstate, here's the value. And here's the value. How much of this do we retain in the UP in our own GDP? Right? Almost nothing. Okay? How much revenue comes out of that pasty? Not that much. We have to figure out something in the middle here, and I think outdoor recreation, mobility, and electrification are where we can create that value proposition to the rest of the state of Michigan. These are easy to find on the internet. You can come up with thousands of different examples of this. Polaris wants that sweet Tesla hype as it goes big on outdoor EVs. The company which makes everything from snowmobiles to ATVs and motorcycles says it will offer electric versions of all of its vehicles by 2025. How many years away is 2025? How much money do you think it's going to cost Polaris to get electric vehicles in each one of their category by 2025?
$500 million.
$500 million at least. How many other companies like Polaris are doing the same thing right now?
All of them that want to stay in business.
All of them that want to stay in business, right? Who remembers Kodak? Okay? Oops, right? That one person who's like, yeah, I don't think that digital stuff's going to take off.
They had a brilliant lab, and the business people basically killed all the innovation.
Yeah, the accountants killed the innovation at Kodak, right? The film company that was selling film to the movie industry said, and here's the story, and full disclosure, I was at Kodak for a little while, and I saw the place that digital was invented, and they threw up a giant pixelated picture, and that was their presentation to management. And they're like, what? It was like, before the Hubble telescope looking at space, you couldn't see what it is, the pixelization of those images. And you're arguing that against the people who have been in film for 100 years saying, look at the clarity, you'll never get here. They didn't know about Moore's Law, right? So, unless you're Kodak, you are investing right now billions of dollars into electrifying your products for a market that doesn't even exist because of government incentives and mandates to electrify, to get clean, and the industry's making that decision for us. You think about Polaris spending that money, Kawasaki, Honda, Suzuki, and you're going to see a bunch of brands that you wouldn't believe that are getting into this space. Michigan and the UP has an opportunity to be part of that value proposition if we choose to be. Volcon, company out of Texas. $6,000 for that motorcycle right there. Austin will add to your rebate from the government another $600 if you're in Austin, Texas, and you buy that Brat electric motorcycle right there, electric bicycle. There, you say Brat. What was the Subaru, Mike? Brat. We'll have to call them and ask. But the point of the matter is that the city in Texas is giving a government incentive to put more people on electric bicycles. That makes it really tough to compete unless you're in that electric space. This is the Stag from Volcon. It's an all-electric side-by-side UTV. Anyone want to guess the suggested retail price on that vehicle?
40 grand.
It's $40,000. Did you already pre-order one?
How you showed me it.
Yeah. That's why I can't share my ideas. $40,000.
Well, what else can you do with that skateboard?
So you can put that on it, you can put a bunch of other stuff, but do you see who's making the skateboard? General Motors has employees that can't even point to the UP. And yet, that company in Texas is getting a drivetrain from General Motors for an outdoor recreational vehicle. They didn't even know they were in that business 6 months ago. Who spun records on an RCA turntable? Okay, they just launched a bike that goes 34 miles an hour. That's it right there. That's your RCA electric motorcycle bicycle. Porsche, this is the third company, the third bicycle company that Porsche has bought. How many people know who KKR is? Kohlberg, Kravis, and Roberts, one of the biggest financial companies in the world in New York. I think they owned RJ Nabisco for a while, had a couple cigarette companies. There's a good book about KKR called Barbarians at the Gate, I think is what it's called. They bought Raleigh bicycles in Europe for $1.77 billion. What's the number one selling electric vehicle in the United States? In the world? It's a bicycle, not a car. More people are going to get introduced to electric transportation through the bicycle than the car. The bicycle is what's going to give them confidence to buy an electric car.
China's producing 80 million of them a year right now.
Who's producing 80 million?
China
is producing 80 million. Detroit just got its second bicycle manufacturing business. This is a company called Taiga. They make electric snowmobiles and electric watercraft. I want you to read that right there, or I'll read it to you. We're redefining what it means to engage with the wild. That's not just marketing copy. They really mean it. They are changing the way that people are going to go outdoors. So I was talking to some folks at Taiga a few months ago, and I asked them, I said, how many people have bought your product or ordered your product who have never owned an outdoor power sport equipment product in the past?
Or 40%.
40%. 40% of the people that bought a Taiga electric snowmobile had never owned a snowmobile before. Why do people not buy snowmobiles right now? If you're a silent sports person?
Yeah.
Break all the time.
Loud, right? Scary, pollute, smelly, right?
Not a mechanic.
The electric snowmobile, 40% of the people had never owned one of these products before. The woods are going to be filled with bird watchers, not people doing donuts. They're going to be older. It's a completely different group of people that are going to have accessibility to the outdoors because it's not loud and scary. It doesn't require a ton of maintenance. I don't have to worry about oil and gas.
You may even see wildlife.
And you might even see wildlife. So I'll sidebar, yesterday I also had an opportunity. I drove an electric side-by-side. It was the first time I rode one. It was not a golf cart, I can promise you that. It didn't perform like a golf cart. But it was interesting through the day because it was the first time I had been around an electric side-by-side for a period of time. And chatting with a bunch of people, and all of a sudden the side-by-side started moving. And everyone responded like it slipped out of park and started going on its own. It didn't. There was actually a driver in it. It was just silently moving. Unbelievable experience, unbelievable amount of torque, quiet, and you can just hum down the road and the only thing you hear is the tires whirling. There is a big push to change the way that we're heading into the outdoors. Let's talk about assets. This is Michigan's snowmobiling network. Those are only snowmobile trails. The UP, roughly 10 million acres, and that's 5,000 miles of snowmobile trails. This is something I don't think we even really appreciate here in Marquette or the UP. Do you know how many people come up in droves from downstate Wisconsin and Minnesota to go snowmobiling on this network? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. You can literally go to YouTube and type in snowmobiling in the UP, and you see all of these YouTube channel people talking about how awesome it is to go riding in the UP. We crossed the bridge, we got to St. Ignace, we went up to Squamish Falls, and you can follow their adventures. That right there is probably one of the greatest assets in the country right now. Because everyone that's producing an electric snowmobile for 2025 has no place to send them.
Infrastructure matters.
There is no infrastructure. So the industry knows, okay, this is going electric. The resources are not going to electrify those trails for that industry unless they're purposeful about it. Right now, everyone's interested in electrifying other routes. That is an incredible asset. Here's the other asset. This is automobile manufacturers in the state of Michigan. Where are they? Okay? So Detroit, they would tell you that they are the center of the automobile world. Okay? And that might have been, but I don't think it is right now because they are fighting tooth and nail to keep that industry in Detroit right now. And that's the bulk of it. So if I go back, that resource, see this? There's nothing of this type of resource in this area. And there's nothing of this resource in that area. That's how you tie a value proposition together. If we're not relevant to Detroit, we're not part of Michigan's economy. We have got to create a connection that is transactional between these two environments. Now, Detroit won't show you this, but this is a map of all car assembly plants in the U.S., their production capacity, and whether they produce electric vehicles. Where is the automobile industry headed? South. Okay? If we want to remain relevant in the economy, it's not going to be just about the automobile in the lens of out of Detroit. However, if we want to combine the assets that we have in the UP and show a value proposition to Detroit, where companies like Volcon, who actually do not want to go to China, it's a pain. I've done that literally myself. It's really, really difficult. And when the supply chain got shut off, now we can't deliver vehicles. So there is an incredible push to reshore. Michigan has an opportunity to solve a problem for the entire outdoor recreation industry by opening up this skill set that we have right there of design, manufacturing, engineering, supply chain management, and tying it to our rural communities. This is a group, I think it's called Electrify America, except for us. Why is that? It's too cold, right? It's too cold in their minds, and you know what? There's no population there. Why would we invest in an area there's no population? There will be. We have a choice right now where we can show this value proposition of what our relevance is to the rest of the United States and its economy, and it's not by leaving us off of the charging grid. And no one who put this map together woke up this morning going, what can I do for the people in the UP, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Montana? They want to get you from Starbucks in Austin to Starbucks in Seattle. Excuse me. So here we are. We have this side of the book, and that's our extraction economy. And this is where the other side of the coin falls, on this side. And we have a choice right now to build some economy in the state of Michigan around outdoor recreation, transportation, manufacturing, design, engineering, connecting the UP and northern lower to Detroit and that value proposition and that value chain. Or we can sell trail passes and pasties and let them take our natural resources. But if we don't build something that's relevant in between, we're going to be constantly repeating the struggles that we have in the UP. Jobs for people. Resources for people. No one's waking up thinking about how they're going to invest right now if you're not in the UP. So it's about transactional connections. How do we connect the Upper Peninsula to the Lower Peninsula in a value proposition that earns us a seat at the table in those conversations in Detroit and Lansing, because we have something of value, which, by the way, is an $862 billion industry with the natural resources that we have. We don't have to use that for over-tourism. We can apply that and connect rural to urban communities and overlay outdoor over mobility. And we can actually manifest an economy throughout Michigan that creates a geographic redistribution of opportunity and makes it relevant for us to participate in the rest of the economy in the state. So this is my shameless self-plug, okay? I'm working on a project. Joe and Innovate Marquette SmartZone and Invest UP and Dave Nyberg at Northern Michigan University and a lot of people have been helping me, and Brad is in here and Paul is in here. I have been in conversations with people all over the country. And what I'm doing is I'm taking a look at what is happening, the stuff I just shared. How does this make sense? How does it make connectivity? And then for myself, what would I do to move it forward so that we could have a seat at the table? And so my dream is to build Shop House Park in the north side of Marquette, a campus that is going to attract companies. And I've been talking to companies and they're not saying no. Big companies who are interested, and not to take over and not to put their flag down and tell us how it's going to be, but companies that truly appreciate the natural resources, the trails that we have, and all of our organizations that are working together in concert to create relevancy in the economy that overlays with Detroit. And Detroit is not telling us no either. We are at the table, we're having those conversations with the power brokers, the policymakers, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, the Michigan Strategic Fund. They're taking us serious. And so we have an opportunity right now to build something like this, to take a look at our trails, to take a look at these small towns from St. Ignace to Ironwood to Watton to Covington to Trout Lake to Trout Creek to Paradise to Silver City, and spread the opportunity throughout the entire UP that is connected by those trails and create relevancy for those small towns that happen to be next to the most promoted places like Tequamanon Falls and Lake of the Cloud and the Porkies, where we're not just giving it away at tourism at the end of the value proposition, and we can participate at the front of the value proposition like they used to do. This is a map of the 15 plants or so that Henry Ford had in January of 1945. There were 15 Ford plants. I think it says right here, Ford owned nearly the entire town of Big Bay. How's Ford working out in Big Bay these days? We can be relevant. We can build a map like this again. We can connect our value proposition to the rest of the state, and we can do it in a way that they're going to say, that is really incredible. We want to participate with you to build out that economy. So, I covered outdoor recreation, innovation, technology. I asked those 3 questions, and that was my talk, and let's have a conversation about it. questions. Good. Yes.
So I came here as a strategic relocation. I'm looking at kind of the confluence of climate change, work from anywhere, and the natural and cultural environment here. There's a massive opportunity for synergy with Detroit and the rest of the country. Are you seeing a move for more folks like that? Like, are we on the front of that wave, do you think, where you're going to see a lot more creatives and such coming to this area over the next, say, 5 or so years?
Yes. So, but yes in twofold. One is we're going to have remote workers that are super talented people from all over the country, but they're no good if they don't engage with the community, share their networks, and invest. And so I'm not interested in someone retiring from Pfizer and buying a camp somewhere on a lake and not participating in the rest of the economy in the UP. And so remote workers are going to have to figure out a way to be engaged and make those investments. The second is Shophouse Park, of what we want to build, is a trap. It's a trap because I want to have those conversations that I've had in my travels all over the world, and we don't have enough of them here. And I know that venture capitalists, I know that businesses, I know that startups will come to an area where there are concentrated resources, where people come together, a place to stay that they can get to, and a little garage space to tinker. And while it might not be charcoal, it's going to be something else. You had a question too?
I was just wondering if you could flesh out the term value proposition. Like, you've been using the term a lot, and I'm not exactly sure being at one end or the other.
Yeah, so I'll take a shot at value proposition. Anyone in here who's got a better definition is more than welcome to take a crack at it. I think it's in the simplest thing of an exchange, right? And so I think from a downstate perspective, Henry Ford saw incredible value in the UP and how it connected to their value chain, right? And so a business builds a value chain. And so our value chain right now is extraction and tourism. We cut out 100 links in between that value chain. And when you're talking to the policymakers and the business people and the investors that are throughout the rest of the state, whining about not getting our fair share does not get us a seat at the table. You have to have something that they're interested in, that they see value in. And when there's value, then there's an exchange. And when there's an exchange, then more value builds off of that. So from a value chain and proposition, you really have to identify what do you have that's valuable and how does it relate to someone else's value chain. And if you can connect those two things, it's kind of like when the first fax machine was built, it was useless. But then the second fax machine came about, now it's twice as powerful because they can communicate. And then when you have a web of fax machines and anyone can fax something, right? Now that has an exponential increase of the value of that web or that chain. Joe, you want to take a crack at that?
No, I was just going to add on to the remote work comment real quick. So these big corporations have gone remote work. And that's great. They save them a lot of money. They've been able to disperse their employees around the country. But the problem is you can't effectively innovate hands-on on Zoom. So what Shophouse Park creates is an environment for these corporations to have a space and a place to be able to come to and do that innovation in a hands-on way that they need. And then many companies can do that together. So we have people who invent and build bike racks, with people who invent automobiles, with people who have e-bikes, coming together in the same location to look at all those things simultaneously while they innovate together, and they create that environment and that talent pool that Dave's talking about. Super important to have
Can I add to that?
I guess
But then we also have our natural resources and our trails
So
that
to be able to test.
nobody else in the country,
Yep.
maybe Colorado, has it, whatever.
No one has the two peninsula advantage. Yes, you have a question.
Are we sitting for a sales pitch right now?
Um,
Because I feel like that's.
So you're not buying, and that's fine, right?
I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'm working really hard to be open-minded.
Yeah.
I just texted my manager and said, I feel like this is gonna turn into a sales pitch. You're a great speaker, you gave some great information. I'm not sure what I learned besides what your shop house thing is.
Did anyone else learn anything?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I care about. But to your point, and it's fair, right? Look at how many people want rocket launching? How many people know anything about it? Okay? So we're going to have not always agreeing on what to do about the economy, but you know what I won't do? Sit around and watch it falter.
Right, and I own 2 businesses in Marquette. I moved here 6 years ago to be away from Chicago,
Yep.
and the city and the hubbub of that bullshit. And what this sounds like to me, and again, I'm not disagreeing, I don't know enough to disagree.
Sure,
to be
but you
honest.
should voice your opinion. That's okay.
And so it feels like we're asking, or this, your I don't know, shop, what is it called? Shop house project. Feels like you're asking people to come here to do all of this stuff and not necessarily create the jobs that we're asking for.
What jobs are you asking for?
I don't know, but that's what part of the talk was talking about, is bringing jobs to the UP and innovating here. I guess it just feels like the remote workers are, I consider myself a huge part of this community, and people who have started coming here, I use Strava, and I see people on the trails racing to get to their best score on Strava.
Damn those people.
Well, I'm a runner, I'm not a biker. And so I'm on the trail and some dude is zooming by me, some chick is zooming by me trying to beat their trail and they don't see me and I get knocked off the trail. And that's what it feels like is starting to happen probably since COVID, with people coming in to being in the outdoors, which I encourage. I've been in the outdoor industry for 12 years, working and recreating, and it just feels people who have the fast bikes and people who have the technology are taking over. And I'm not saying they can't be a part of this, but the respect and the locals here, and again, I'm not a Uber, but I'm a local, and it just feels people coming here to take over.
But you just came here.
I came here 6 years ago and I integrated myself into this community.
Okay. So I think, so it's a good opinion, right? And number one, not a sales pitch, because I can tell you that stuff's happening. And you're going to be super disappointed as it continues to happen. There are people who would rather, how many people telly in leather boots still? Oh, come on, not at least one old telly skier here with leather boots, right? Because I can tell you, when you went from leather to plastic, they weren't comfortable. Stuff is going to keep happening, right? And what I'm excited about is I'm an entrepreneur who cares deeply about my community, and I'm not professing to have the right answers. In fact, I've been around long enough to know that life has no right answers. Not one is a right answer. You make a choice and you deal with consequences. And what our choice right now is to recognize an industry that is growing, that is supported by the government, that is supported by the state. And the last thing that I want here in Marquette, in the UP, is over-tourism of people from Chicago buying pasties and not investing in my community. And I also don't want to lose an opportunity that comes once in a generation to get it right. And so every single person in this room should be coming up with a plan like mine in their own view and bringing it to a forum and putting themselves out there with, here's an opportunity. You don't have to buy it. You don't have to like it. But the last thing we want is people not trying in this community to change our economic prosperity on our own terms. And it's what's happening.
You talk about manufacturing, you talk about just innovation and manufacturing somewhere else and doing that product.
All of it. So I would say there's probably varying opinions around manufacturing, okay? K.I. Sawyer would have been a great place to get some manufacturing. It requires rail, it requires people, right? But the fact of the matter is to the kind of the value proposition in the supply chain is we don't have enough of that connectivity. Like Blue Oval City. Who's heard of Blue Oval City? Do you know what Blue Oval City is?
Yes.
Blue Oval City is a new manufacturing plant in Tennessee that Michigan did not get, okay? Blue Oval City is 36, what is it, Craig? It's like 36 100,000.
Oh, it's huge.
It's
It's crazy.
hundreds and hundreds of acres of a battery manufacturing plant. Okay,
11 million square feet of.
it's 11 million square feet of battery manufacturing. Okay, is that coming to the UP? Is that coming to Marquette? Is that coming to KSR? Probably not. Right. What I think will end up happening, I think what we'll see is we will have innovation is going to drive some new ideas. And in early, I think that's going to be a lot of small companies, but we do have some larger companies that are interested in coming in and investing. Okay, I don't think those companies are thinking about this from a manufacturing perspective, right? But the goal would be, and I think some people would like to see some light manufacturing, some industrial, but I don't think we're going to see that anywhere near the scale of a blue oval city. And I think that would be a big stretch for us to be able to produce. Now, what I would love to see happen is you get a few clever people together, and then a few more clever people together, and they're like, hey, we welded some rims together, then we got a factory to make a wider rim, and now I need something to groom my trails with. And that exponentially then starts to increase, and a couple of those products might take off, a small business might launch here and do that, but maybe we connect that with Detroit and engineering and manufacturing. And again, we are in a unique situation being in the UP where the majority of the state's economy, right? Remember, 3% of the population and a third of the landmass. We have to create transactions with the cities that drive the economy in the UP so we have a relevance. Steph.
We are seeing, and if you know realtors or talk to realtors, we are seeing people investigating and moving here as, you know, climate change, climate refugees all the time. If we can direct some of those people to have a focus so that they are coming here not just to live in their houses and remote work, but to invest and engage and utilize our communities in a respectful, engaging way. And we can set up at the forefront a community that is set up so that our trails are set up, like you said, so that they're set up well and people know the rules and you don't have the assholes. And we can set up things as a community so that we can integrate people who are coming here and clueless. I know last summer it seemed to be the summer of people complaining about e-bikes on the bike path. That's not going to get any easier. Let's set up some rules now. Let's set up how we're going to integrate all that before it gets out of hand and it's a problem. And I think that's what I'm getting from you is let's get ahead of the problem.
Yes. So it's exactly right to get ahead of it. And I can tell you this, how many people are silent sports people? How many people are motorsports people? Okay? What happens when motorsports aren't loud anymore? What are you going to do? Right? So we're going to hit a mashup, right? And there was a video playing earlier that showed what happens when a snowmobile mates with a bicycle, right? That's what's happening is all of these products are turning into entirely new categories. And it is a moment of singularity, if you know what that means, which means we can't predict what's actually going to happen when all of these permutations come together of these new uses.
And just to quickly interrupt, I know I'm loving the discussion. I think we probably have time for about 2 more questions. We are right at time, but
Okay, about 10 more questions. Yeah. Actually, is there someone that didn't get a question? Sorry, there's a question in the back. Is that Aaron?
Yeah, I just want to piss on the fire a little bit. What do you say to people that say this is a conversation that's 10 years too late? That this is already happening, proposition value is going on in Tennessee, it's going on around the country, it's going around in Asia and Canada. Why, how do you combat that? Or has it passed the UT buys yet?
Yeah, so you're talking to someone, and if I was explaining how I feel every day, you know that feeling when you're going down the highway and you miss your exit, and then you have to go 20 minutes in the wrong direction to get back to your exit? That's how I feel every moment of my life, right? We definitely, in my opinion, have a very short window of opportunity, and I've invented, a lot of people know, I've invented some things, okay? And I have never worked on a product where I was the only person on the planet working on that product. There was always someone faster, with better resources, that was smarter and better connected, that had more support to do something. Bentonville is kind of like that. Ryan.
Yeah, Dave, this proposition seems like it's going to require regional collaboration. I'm just wondering, what do you think about engagement with other communities outside Marquette County? We're kind of an island here in Marquette.
It's a must. The last thing we need to do is put a red lighthouse on this brochure, right? You have to create the connectivity with the rest of the UP, and really, that's a solution for Marquette, right? Marquette does not need to always be the Queen City. As a matter of fact, if you want to have a really strong UP, start load balancing what that is. And so this is a talk about technology, so let me give you a little taste of what I think is going to happen in the future. I'm going to get on my Polaris snowmobile that has a ride command system on it. And that ride command is awesome because it's got a display right in front of me that shows where my snowmobile is and my friend's snowmobile on the same screen. I can map. I'm going to go to the Jack Pine Bar on my snowmobile, and that map will show up on my dashboard and it'll take me there. And in the future, you're going to be able to load balance your experience. And so I'm going to be able to punch in on my Polaris snowmobile. I'm going to say, I want to go from St. Ignace to the Jack Pine, but I don't want to see anybody because they're assholes. So I'm going to hit this button, and it's going to tell me, right now, slow down to 44 miles an hour, and it's going to tell somebody else, if you go up to 46 miles an hour, by the time you get that intersection, their dust will be cleared. And so we will be able to use the technology to enhance how many people are using the trails, provide the best possible customer service throughout the UP, and not have to see the people that, quite honestly, I don't want to see when I go outdoors. I'm not interested in actually being with people. This is actually the most people I've been with in several months. All right, but one last one. Yes, Andrea?
Yeah, I just wanted to, it was great information, and I thought a lot of the information was really well presented from a financial standpoint. I wanted to know, so knowing that the city is going through their master planning sessions right now, and actually there's public feedback next week for anyone who doesn't know that, there's several sessions at the, around the city that they're holding. I'm wondering how much of this you talked to the city about and whether it's being considered in their master planning.
Yep, so number one, in this process of working on this project, the city of Marquette has been absolutely fantastic and supportive and providing guidance along the way. And a lot of times I think you would find that, would-be developers wouldn't share that same experience with their municipalities. And so they've been very open and collaborative and not just shutting things down, but coming up with other ways to be able to move forward. So heavily engaged in that conversation. I myself filled out the master plan survey, and I hope you all did too. And I think next week I'm going to one of the listening sessions.
Yeah,
and
so I just want to make sure people knew, because I think everyone was really engaged in your talk, and potentially, more voices in regards to these things is powerful. So.
Yes, good point. And you want one? You got it.
Kind of a big picture question, but tagging on his question a little bit. You've been here a long time. You saw Marquette in the 70s, and you see what it is now. You look at Nagani is starting to be the go-to place. My question is, why does one city succeed and others don't?
Boy, I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that, but I've never been afraid to take a crack at something. So, sorry about the time, Kristen. Kristen's going to go nuts. So anyone needs to move, you're allowed to move, okay? So family history. I was born in Marquette in 1970, across the street from the Ledbetters are sitting here. They knew me before I was born. My parents, my dad was in the grocery business, and we had grocery stores in Ishpeming, we had grocery stores in Nagani, we had grocery stores on 3rd Street. and in Escanaba over a period of time. And so I remember as a kid going to these other communities, and I think those other communities were a little more lively back then. I think we saw a little bit more mine activity, and I think we had more stable jobs in those communities. I think those communities are the gem, right? I think Marquette, how many people are looking for a house right now in Marquette, right? Well, there aren't any, right? You know, keep looking. So I think we do have an opportunity now to create higher value in these connected communities. And you know what I love about these communities? They are actually better connected through the trail system than they are our highways. There are more people right now traveling by snowmobiles off the beaten path between these small communities. And you know, one of my challenges to the state and economic developers and Ryan from a geographic standpoint of the entire UP is you take a look at Tequamanon Falls and you take a look at Lake of the Clouds and the Porkies, okay? The two most pure Michigan promoted areas in the state can never get away from seeing a picture of Tequamanon Falls or Lake of the Clouds, okay? How many people have been to Paradise and Silver City, okay? You and the scouts for Netflix who are creating murder movies.
That makes sense.
Okay? So our most promoted areas are sitting next to towns that are hanging on by a thread looking for relevancy in the economy. And I think outdoor recreation, mobility, accessibility to the outdoors, the electrification of all this actually gives us a UP-wide value proposition. And again, I don't think any state can compete with two peninsulas. And the last thing I want to do is change the percentage of population in the UP to where I need to leave. But we have to do something so that when my daughters go away from school, they have a job to come back to. And I covered this in the beginning. There are no jobs for me in Marquette. That's a problem, that's a mistake, that doesn't bring talent to the area, and if we don't do that, we get what we get. Can I, positive note, clap? There we go. Thank you all very much, I appreciate it.